We hear more on all this from three people who have long been involved in the effort to end discrimination. Judith Heumann is a longtime activist for those with disabilities and now special advisor for international disability rights at the State Department. Tatiana McFadden is a wheelchair racer who has medaled in each of the last 3 Paralympics, including winning 3 gold medals in the 2012 Paralympics in London. And U.S. Representative Jim Langevin of Rhode Island. He is, among his other duties, co-chair of the Bipartisan Disabilities Caucus, and we welcome all 3 of you to the program. Tatiana, to you first. The ADA was already the law of the land when you came to the United States at the age of 6 from Russia. How's it made a difference in your life, do you think?
I really have to thank the people who came before me and who made ADA possible. I have the right to an education. I graduated recently from the University of Illinois. I'm going to get my master's program. But the most important, the effect that ADA took was when I was in high school. Coming back from Athens in 2004, I was a Paralympic medalist, and I was entering freshman year into high school, and all I wanted to do was be part of my high school track team. And they denied me the right to give me a uniform. They said I could run with my own kind, and they would not allow me to participate in high school sports. So we took action, and we filed a lawsuit with no money. And because of the ADA, it was law. And I have to really thank the ADA for that.
It made a huge difference for you. Judy Heumann, what about you? How has it made a difference for you?
So I'm 67 years old, and I've seen a dramatic change over the course of my life. I had polio in 1949, right after President Roosevelt had died. And when I was growing up, I was denied the right to go to school because I used a wheelchair. Only had a teacher who came 2.5 hours a week until I was 9 years old, and went to universities, but they were very inaccessible. But now I work at the State Department, as you said, and I go to work every day on an accessible bus. I take the train home frequently. I fly in airplanes. I can drive, get on trains to get up the East Coast and travel around the world where conditions are not as good as here.
Congressman Langevin, you wrote an article this week in which, among other things, you said for all the accomplishments of the ADA, its promise has not been fulfilled. What did you mean by that?
Well, first of all, I want to say that the Americans with Disabilities Act has had a profound impact on my life. I was injured about 10 years before the ADA passed, so I really remember what the world was like before ADA was passed and after it was enacted. And clearly it's brought down tremendous barriers and obstacles and has opened doors for people with disabilities. But there's still much more work to be done. It has also, by the way, changed the psychological barriers that existed before the ADA was passed, and it really is the civil rights law of our time. But we have more work to do in terms of providing real employment opportunities for people with disabilities. There are still too many people with disabilities that are unemployed. I think there's approximately 34% among the people that have a disability that have jobs. There's so much more work to do there. Transportation, making that truly accessible and easy to access is still, we need more work to do. Accessible transportation is not abundant really where it needs to be for people with disabilities. Affordable housing, accessible housing is another area where we have more work to do.
So let me turn to you on that, Tatiana. How do you see that? I mean, the psychological barriers out there, whether it's to employment, whether it's education, what do you see?
I do believe that there's more work to be done, and I believe that it's my generation's turn to take over and to help and to say that people with disabilities should be employed. And we see the change coming, but I see that the change will be definitely in the future.
What do you think is holding it back? I noticed the president, we didn't include this as part of the clip, but the president said sometimes it may be discouragement on the part of those with disabilities. Maybe they're not going after some of the jobs they could get.
I think it's just education and talking about disability. I mean, disability is part of who I am, and it's just sharing that with the public and saying, I can do this, this is what I can do, and this is how I may do it. And it's just showing the public that.
Judy Heumann, what about this whole question of employment, lack of employment for people who are able-bodied? The president said so much talent we don't want to waste.
Well, I think it's true in part that some disabled people have stopped looking for jobs because they've had bad experiences not being able to get them. But I also think there are many disabled people that are looking for jobs, and that in some cases they're not being given equal opportunities. So I think right now the president has an initiative to get the federal government to be employing more disabled people. Now we have about 13% of the federal workforce are people with disabilities, and I think, quite frankly, having disabled people in the workforce also, we reach out to other people that we feel are qualified to get them to apply for jobs. So the State Department, we've definitely seen an increase in the number of individuals who have disabilities and the number of disabled individuals who are willing to disclose that they have them.
Congressman Langevin, what is stopping, do you think, employers sometimes from hiring someone with a disability?
Well, again, I go back to what I said earlier, is that there may be a bit of fear about what it means to have a reasonable accommodation, and what does that mean, and there are some people that, some employers I'm sure, that think that there are extraordinary measures that have to be gone to employ someone with a disability. That's not what the ADA requires at all. Reasonable accommodations is what it's all about. I would also say that there is this, the part that perhaps people with disabilities is a fear factor of not wanting to go out to find a job because they're afraid that they're going to lose their long-term or short-term community supports, things like PCAs and such. There has been progress.
PCA meaning?
Personal care attendants. Also fear of losing the health care. Now there has been progress made in things like the Ticket to Work program and other programs that help to ensure that people won't lose things like their health care and other supports. So educating people with disabilities that there are opportunities out there, but still more work to be done in that area. That there are things that, other than just the financial income that someone may lose by going off of SSI or SSDI, that there are other programs.
This is Social Security benefits you're referring to. Let me come to you, Tatiana, to all three of you here at the end on what do you want people watching and listening to this to know? People who are able-bodied, who don't have a disability, what should they know about those with disabilities and what you really want?
That if you employ someone with disability, I think you're creating a better world, and you're creating a more equal world. And it's just about showing the possibilities of what can be done. And we live in America where that can be done. And so that's what I'm hoping to teach people and to show people, that this is all possible, and just to keep moving forward.
And Judy Heumann, what about just attitudes and the way people look at those with disabilities?
So I think the ADA is only 25 years old, and in the United States we have hundreds of years where disabled people have not been allowed to be integrated into our societies. So things are not going to change overnight. I think groups like the U.S. Business Leadership Network and National Organization on Disability that are working with many employers who say they are interested in employing more disabled people, and I think there's going to be some data coming out in the near future about how some companies are doing to really advance employment. And ultimately what we want is that society sees us just as a part of society. That's really it, that they see us as valued members of our communities.
Congressman Langevin, just quickly, what do you want people to know about those with disabilities?
That people with disabilities are tremendous employees. They have incredible gifts and talents to contribute to a company, a place of business, to the world in general. And I've often said that I still believe that people with disabilities are one of this nation's greatest untapped resources that we need to tap into. And I know we can make it certainly a better world, and again, continue to realize the full promise of the Americans with Disabilities Act. That is my goal as a member of Congress, I am the first quadriplegic elected to Congress, and I work every day to try to, with my colleagues, bring down those barriers, open up doors, and create those job opportunities. And I know we have great support here on the Hill, and we just need to continue to get the word out and continue to realize the promise of ADA.
Congressman Jim Langevin, Judy Heumann from the State Department, Tatiana McFadden, Paralympic gold medalist. We thank you all three.
Thank you.